Good evening, everyone. As I mentioned earlier on in my introduction, I'm currently trying to add German to my language combination. So I'm very much immersed in all things German at the moment. And in August, I was in the city of Freiburg in the south of Germany, and I was doing a German course there, lovely time. And on my way back to Brussels, I decided to stop off in the city of Cologne. It's more or less halfway between the two cities. Cologne, some of you may know it, it's not the most beautiful city around. Most of it was destroyed in the Second World War, but there are some older areas. There's the beautiful cathedral, of course, which is right beside the railway station, and there are some Roman ruins, so there are things to do and things to see. And while I was there, I learnt about something new. As interpreters, we're always looking out for new things, we're always trying to learn new things and always thinking, oh, I might be asked to write a speech, so I'll have to take some notes and try to find out a little bit about this phenomenon. And of course, once you learn something, you then see it everywhere. And it's actually called the frequency bias, a thing where you've never heard of something, and then all of a sudden it pops up everywhere. So that's another new term for you, the frequency bias. But today I'm not going to talk about the frequency bias. I'm going to talk about something called Stolpersteine. So excuse my German pronunciation. As I say, I'm just learning the language, and I'm not a German native speaker by any means. But those of you who speak German will be a step ahead of me. You'll know that the verb stolpern means to trip or to stumble, and that the word Stein means stone. So it's literally a stone that you trip over, that you stumble over. And these are cobblestones, in a sense. You know, when you're in an older city, you'll see cobble streets. We have them here in Brussels. But these are special cobblestones because, first of all, they're raised. They're a few centimeters off the ground. So you will literally stumble over them. And they're also covered in brass, so in a metal. And there's some biographical information on there. So you'll see the name of a person, you'll see their date of birth, their place of birth, and some information about their death as well, when they died and how they died, where they died, etc. And so you might think, oh, that's nice, you know, we're finding out about people from the past. But this is actually a memorial, and it's to commemorate the people who were killed in the Holocaust. So usually it says, here lived whatever person, and usually at the end you've got a place of death, which is usually a concentration camp, Auschwitz or Birkenau, or some of the famous concentration camps, infamous concentration camps that we all know. And often the date of death is approximate. They don't exactly know. They might say October 1944 or something like that. It's very rare to see one where you actually see the date of death. So it's a very interesting project. It's obviously a very tragic project. We know all about the Holocaust from films, from our classes at school. But here we actually have stones, cobblestones on the street outside buildings where real people lived. And this project was the brainchild of a German artist, a man called Günther Demnig, and it started back in 1992. As I said, it's a commemoration to victims of the Holocaust. Usually we're talking about Jewish people, but we should also remember that other people perished in the Holocaust. We're thinking here of Roma people, then known as gypsies, homosexuals, people with disabilities, and communist people on the far left. So it started back in 1992, and as of October 2018, there are now 70,000 of these Stolpersteine in the world, mainly in Europe. And the 70,000th stone was installed in Frankfurt. So it's actually now achieved a record because it's the largest decentralized memorial in the world. So obviously you've got the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin and in a few other cities, but that's a centralized memorial. Everything is in one place. But the good thing, the interesting thing about the Stolpersteine project is that it's scattered throughout Europe. So it's not just concentrated in one city. You can see these Stolpersteine in many cities. Here in Brussels, you can see them as well. As I said, now that I've found out about this project, I see these Stolpersteine everywhere. I was in Berlin a few weeks ago and I saw them there. I see them in Brussels, you see them in Paris, you see them everywhere. So it's really a very interesting project, a very important project. And you can see them in all sorts of cities, over 1,200 towns and cities in Europe. So it's right across Europe. And just to go back to the name, the origin of the name. So I gave you the approximate English translation, but the name actually goes back to Nazi Germany, because people in Germany, I assume Nazis, but probably just regular German people, would say, if they tripped over a cobblestone, they would say, oh, it must be because there's a Jew buried there. So it actually has quite an anti-Semitic origin, but it's now been reappropriated. So instead of focusing on the negative anti-Semitic meaning, the insult has been reappropriated and turned into a memorial. So I think that's a very nice thing as well. You could also think of it as a stumbling block. In English, we talk about a problem being like a stumbling block. So we're looking at some of the problems of our past, some of the challenges of our past, and we're trying to get over them. So the tour that I did in Cologne really encouraged me to spread the word about Stolpersteine. I think it's a very important project, so that's what I'm trying to do here in my own humble way. And I'd like to wrap up my speech by talking about how to get a Stolperstein installed. If you know someone or related to, obviously you won't know the person firsthand, but if you're perhaps related to someone or know someone who is related to someone who perished in the Holocaust, what's the process for getting that person's life recorded on one of these cobblestones? Well, first of all, you need to do some research, and the research is usually carried out by historians, could be carried out by history teachers and groups of pupils or students, by relatives or local history organizations, and they'll use various different websites to try to find out about Holocaust victims. A very useful website for this is the Yad Vashem website, which is an Israeli website which compiles information about victims of the Holocaust. So there you can find out the name of the person, their date of birth, where they lived. You can find out their exact address to be able to get the Stolpersteine installed in front of the person's house, because that's the whole idea behind it, is that it actually commemorates where the person lived. It's not just a monument in the center of a town, it's actually in front of the person's house. You could also use the 1939 German census. So that will record some of the names, and we all know that the Nazis were very careful to record the person's origin, what religion they were, and so on. So you need to have some sort of proof that this person died in the Holocaust, was killed in the Holocaust, and to have some sort of proof about their name, their date of birth, their place of residence, and so on. Then you can contact Mr. Demnig, who's the artist behind the project, and he will personally produce a Stolperstein. So it's not some sort of mass-produced, made-in-China sort of project. It's very personalized, and the cobblestone will be adapted, and the information will be personal to that particular victim of the Holocaust. So you need to give them all the person, this Mr. Demnig, you need to give him all the information, and then he'll produce a Stolperstein. Then the Stolperstein will be installed in the appropriate location. This is not free, of course, because it costs money to make the Stolperstein, and the money is usually covered by victims' families through donations to various Jewish charities. Sometimes there are public funds involved, but it won't cost a fortune. If you want to do this, the price was increased to 120 euros in 2012. So I think originally it was around 95 euros, and now it's 120. So it's not going to break the bank. And as I said, they're hand produced, so there's a limit on how many steins or stones Mr. Demnig can produce. He can't do this day and night. It's not a mass production exercise, as I said, so he can produce a maximum of 440 Stolpersteine every month. So just some information. I think it's a very interesting initiative. I think it's good because it brings the Holocaust to life. It makes it something real, something tangible. You can read about it in textbooks, you can watch films about the Second World War, you can even visit concentration camps. But I think by seeing these reminders on the street, you might just be walking to work, walking to a friend's house, and you look down and you see that a real person lived in this house, and they were deported for no good reason other than they were of a particular religion, or they had a particular sexual orientation, or they had a disability. So I think it really makes history personal and it makes history real, and that's what we've got to do. So I learned about the Stolpersteine, and I've spread the word on to you, and I now count on you to do the same thing. So go out and preach about the Stolpersteine. Thank you very much.